Mr. Bernardino, what's the role of insurance companies and pension funds in infrastructure and in the capital markets union?
Yeah. Well, the insurance companies and pension funds, they can have quite an important role in infrastructures and more often in long-term investment, because they are players that have, of course, long-term liabilities. So there's a win-win situation in terms of matching these liabilities, which are long-term, also with long-term investments. And both insurers and pension funds, they are the ones that have the profile of liabilities to invest in more illiquid investments in the long-term perspective. And that's why EIOPA have been working quite closely in Solvency II on getting the right calibrations for infrastructure investments. And for the first time in terms of the financial market worldwide, defining a specific asset class for infrastructures that will have treatment which is according to the risk profile of these infrastructures in a long-term type of investment. So I think that now we are creating the conditions to have sustainable investment in long-term infrastructure.
And in your speech you mentioned the so-called PEP, which is a specific pension product, an European pension product. Could you give us some major details?
Yeah, well, the idea to develop the PEP is an idea to try to bring more size and more dimension to a market which is quite fragmented at European level right now. There are dozens of small pools of products for pensions, private pensions around Europe, which of course it's not effective, which has high costs, which doesn't get the good returns for consumers and for savers at the end of the day. That's the basic idea of developing a product that will be more cost effective, transparent, standardized, that can be sold on a cross-border basis, and that will benefit, of course, from the economies of scale that will bring down costs and that will bring returns higher. And at the same time, this type of product being really a truly long-term product, which is good for consumers because we have a huge pensions gap and we need to have ways to have savings for retirement. But with a truly long-term product, we can do also long-term investments. And then we come back to your first question about infrastructure. And so that European citizens can benefit also from the development of good infrastructures in the society in the way that they can finance them, but then they can also get back the good cash flows and the good results from these infrastructures. And this is a win-win situation for the Capital Markets Union. And at the end of the day, it's also a platform to give citizens an incentive also, and not only the financial system.
Last question. You recently released the latest results on the stress tests on insurance companies. What are the main results of these latest stress tests for Europe and for Italy?
Exactly. Well, the results of the stress test, I think they are clear in terms of ensuring that according to the Solvency II requirements, the insurance sector, and in particular the life insurance sector, which was the object of this stress test this year, is adequately capitalized. Now, of course, what we tested, and that's the role of stress tests, what we tested were really severe scenarios to apply to the insurers, both in terms of the continuation and the prolongation of a low interest rate environment, and another scenario where we compound and combine the low interest rate environment with a sudden shock on the risk reassessment of risk premium. And of course, in these two scenarios, there are vulnerabilities in the industry in different countries. Actually, at the end, Italy is not one of the countries with the major vulnerabilities, but these vulnerabilities, I think they are important to recognize, to understand from a supervisory perspective. It doesn't mean that you need to put capital now in relation to this, because these are really forward-looking scenarios, quite severe, but it's important to understand those vulnerabilities and that supervisors will act on them, will have a proper dialogue with the industry to understand what actions, if these scenarios would crystallize, what actions you take in a preventive manner. And that's why EIOPA also, and on top of disclosing the results of the stress test, we also approved recommendations to the national authorities where precisely these actions are taken in order to have preventive supervision.